Hi there, welcome to Campus Interaction, the most preferred portal by colleges and companies. In this Java Get Industry Ready video tutorial, in Chapter 1, let's look at some of the basics of Java. Why Java is so popular? What is Java? How do I develop Java? And in fact, let's develop our first program. Let's print out some I will ace interviews. How cool is that? And let's go through some of the basic interview questions. So why Java? Why is it so popular? Java basically can run on any operating systems. It can run on Windows, Unix, Linux, Mac, Ubuntu, and it uses a technology called Java Virtual Machine. I'll explain more on JVM in my next slide. But why is it so significant? What's so significant of running Java in multiple platforms? So as a programmer, I don't have to worry about the underlying platform. I don't have to worry about Windows, or I don't have to worry about Unix. All I have to care about is Java. I learn Java, run Java, and then take it, run it on Windows, run it on Unix. It will run. I don't have to worry about anything else. For our companies, it's a big deal because they are not tied up with one particular server. To give you an industry example, let's say a company comes, it starts a travel website. At the start of the project, they have very little users. In fact, they don't have any users. Let's say they've spent $10,000 on a good Windows server and installed all the Windows operating system. They paid the software fee. And let's say they have spent $500,000 on developing the travel website. They've hired a lot of good Indian programmers like you, and they've developed this nice travel website. Now they've launched it and a lot of users want to use it. Now they are growing. Once they are growing, they have to increase their servers as well in order to cater for more users, in order to take in more users. So if they have to now buy 10 more servers because their users have increased by tenfold, now they have to go and spend $100,000. Whereas if they go to Linux, maybe they will end up spending only $20,000 because Unix is free. All you have to do is pay for the resource cost to install Unix and maintain it. So company would obviously prefer that. They will go for, it's easier for them to go for Linux now because they've used Java. Now they are not tied up with the server. They can still have that $500,000 code running. All they have to do is take it from Windows Server, put it on Linux, compile it. JVM will take the compiler and talk to the language that Linux understands. That's why it's such a big deal for companies. Once I explain about JVM technology, you will understand how Java works in multiple platforms without changing the code. And Java is free. Pretty much everyone can download and start coding. And the next point is quite significant because it manages its own memory. So as a programmer, I don't have to worry about memory or garbage memory or register or pointers. Java manages everything for me. And Java is object oriented, and as we go along in other chapters, I'll cover why object oriented is so powerful. So what is JVM? So what is JVM? Java Virtual Machine is basically, all of you should know about CPU. So CPU, it understands, it's clever all that, but it understands only in one language, which is machine interpreted language. That's where the JVM comes. The JVM says, man, you don't worry, I'll interpret it for you, but I understand only bytecode. And the compiler comes in, says, dude, you don't worry, I'll translate it for you. And the Java comes along and says, look, I'm a cool language, everyone loves me, everyone wants to use me, so why should I change? I'll continue to talk in Java. So what happens is, the Java passes on, the compiler takes the Java language, converts it into a byte code that the JVM understands, and JVM takes it and sends it to the underlying CPU in a machine interpreted language. So tomorrow, if I change everything, move from Windows to Linux, as you can see, all I have done is I've changed my Linux box. Nothing has changed. I still have JVM, I still have the same compiler, and most importantly, I still keep the same Java programs. That's why it could easily run on any platform, and that's why it's so significant. So now you know what JVM is. Also, you will be asked, or you would have known something called Jre. What is Jre? Jre is nothing but, it's more than a JVM. It contains all the libraries and application programming interfaces called API. So don't worry if you don't understand what these libraries are, what API is. I'll cover that in my other chapters. But for now, remember this analogy. If JVM is an engine in a car, Jre is the complete car itself. So when you buy a car, the engine comes along. So when you download the Jre and install it, it contains the JVM. Remember that. So how do I develop Java? You use tools called integrated development environment. In fact, you can develop even without the tools. You can open a text pad, start coding the Java program. You can use Java compiler to compile it, and you can use Java runtime environment to run it. But integrated development environments make it easier. So when you walk into a company as part of a Java role, you will be expected to know about these IDE. So I suggest you download an IDE and start using it. And for this tutorial, I'll be using NetBeans. And NetBeans and Eclipse are the most popular IDEs. So let's download NetBeans and start using it. The link for that is under the resource section. So if you go to that link, you will be presented with lot of options. Obviously you choose Windows if you are using Windows, and these tutorials are only for Windows. And you pick Windows 86 option. If you are not using Windows 64-bit, then go for Windows 86. And I'm pretty sure most of you will be in 32-bit. But if you are using 64, you can go for 64-bit. So let's download it. I've already downloaded. So once you have downloaded, start installing it. So if you click on the installation, just like any other file, it will start installing. So as you can see, it has started installing. So leave it to go through the entire process. So once you have installed, open the NetBeans. You may find some default project. I've cleared everything, so that's why I don't find any default project. Ignore if you find any default project. Go to File, click on New Project, select Java and Java Application, which are the default selection. Don't worry about any of these. I'll explain what these are in my other chapters. So click on Next. Call it as my first program. I suggest you store it under project location. I will be sending you the source code, so I suggest we follow the same path. So create a folder called projects under C, and then leave rest of the thing as it is and click on finish. So it's created your first program. How easy is that? So no, and then once, oops, it's created someone else's name. So once it's created, it's got public static void main. So it also says to do code application logic here. So all you have to do is type I will ace my Java interview. Simple. So now go to run, click on run file. There you go. That's your first program. I'll give you a couple of tips here. Let's not worry about what these public static void main. In fact, I'll tell you what public static void mains are. For Java, for the JVM, if it has to run your Java class, it has to start somewhere. How does it know where to start? This is your first program. Obviously, I can even call it as Jerome's program. So it won't go by this name. If once I've created, let's say 10 program, out of 10 program, which one it'll run first? That's where this public static void main string args come. As soon as it sees that, it'll start running that method. Don't worry about public static, all that. I'll cover it in my future chapters. And if you want to print anything in Java, for now, use system.out.println. But when you actually go and start coding Java in a real project, I wouldn't recommend this. I'll explain you why in my other chapters. But for now, put it as system.out.println. If you want to print anything, put it as system.out.println. I'll give you a couple of tips of how you can, wow your colleagues. When you walk into your first role, on your first day, you've installed IDE, which is kind of expected. But how do you wow your colleagues? How do you wow guys with 1 year experience or even 2 years experience? Some of the things you can do is, like if you go to Windows, help, and go to keyboard shortcuts card, it'll tell you all the keyboard shortcuts. Print this and keep it before your desktop or keep it handy with you. Remember all this. Once you start using this, then you will get used to it. For an example, some of the cool things are, I can press, if you see F6, it'll start run my projects. So instead of going to run and then run the file, all you have to do is press F6. Other cool things are, check this out. These are some of the code examples. Instead of typing the whole thing, I can start typing shortcuts. For an example, if I type PSVM, it will put public static void main code automatically. If I put south, it will put system.out.println. Let's try that. So let me remove that. Look at the speed of coding you can do. PSVM south, I will is my interview, and press F6. That's it, done. Imagine if you can do that on your first day in your first job. Just imagine that. Now that you know what JVM is, and you have written also your first program, let's go through some of the basic interview questions. They will ask, what is JVM? I'm sure by now you would answer that as if someone is asking your name. And you can explain about the entire process, how Java to compiler compiles into a bytecode, bytecode takes it, and JVM takes the bytecode and gives it to the machine interpreted language. Why Java is so popular? You all know the answer now. It's it's machine independent, free. It's got own memory allocation. It takes care of own memory allocation, and the main thing is it's machine independent, and it also supports object oriented programming. And you all know the difference between JVM and Jre. Remember the car analogy. So your JVM is the engine and Jre is the car itself. You know what the bytecode is. Basically your Java gets converted into bytecode using the compiler. What is the extension for Java classes? Very simple, .class. What is the extension for Java program? Very simple, .java. So can I run Java in Unix or Linux? I'll leave that to you. I'm not even going to answer that because I so well know that you all know the answer for that. So, thanks for now. I'll see you soon in my next chapter.